It's like What's up, everybody? It's RobLive here in the studio. I'm super excited for today. It's not Super Bowl Sunday. We're about 2 weeks away, but we got football on my mind. You can check out the fitted gear. Still fits a little snug here, right? My DavidCarr jersey, because we're talking Bulldogs today. We're talking Emperors. We're talking the one and only McMaryion in the house.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys having me.
Okay, I'm excited for this one, Marcus. Well, no offense to all my other guests. I've been excited for all of them. Right, Matt? You're my witness. I've been excited. Michelle, don't hate me. But this is special because you've lived a lot of things that I've dreamt about. You know, first and foremost, if we go back to when I was a kid, Fresno State didn't have bleachers where the grass was, you know, the entrance on the other side.
Yeah.
And they'd sell those tickets for $5 a person. We were coming from London, you know, low budget. You know London.
Yeah. Grew up in Delft.
Yeah, I grew up. There you go.
Yeah.
You're from Delft?
Yeah.
Oh, I love him even more now. I didn't know he's from Delft.
Yep.
So, you know, money's tight. And so we couldn't buy the seats. And so we'd buy the $5 grass tickets. Do you remember those, Mac? They had grass tickets, Jim, out at the Fresno State game. And so sitting there watching Fresno State all those years, I never imagined that I would, see someone from the same place I'm from the same roots, same type of small town, there, and no less like the marquee position, QB.
Right.
So when I first heard that McMaryion was going to play for Fresno State, right, I shed a little tear. I'm not going to lie, I got emotional.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "Why are you all emotional? You don't even know him." I was like, "Man, you don't understand. Like this is everything that we wanted for our people." Because, you know, there's a way to live through people vicariously in a positive and a negative way. Negative is like, you know, oh, my son's going to do all these things because I wanted to do them, and I'm going to make him do them. As opposed to, there's a role model out there who lived a similar path that I did, but made it real.
Yeah.
Which now makes it real for all of us and my kids.
Yeah.
You know, you paved the way. So before I get too far ahead of myself, I just want to start from the beginning. Right, and Jim always talks, dude, why do we start with where they're born? Because it's the origin. So, Marcus, where were you born?
I was born in Fresno, but like I said, I kind of grew up on, I went to Grandview for a couple of years
The
before I
country school?
went to Dinuba, and grew up right there in Delft Colony Road 56 right there, Used to go walk over to People's right there on the corner and get
People's
some food
Market.
from there. So, yeah, grew up right there in Delft.
God.
Yeah.
Delft, guys, for those who are, you know, looking from out of town, my Santa Clarita peeps, everybody who's not from the Central Valley, or even Central Valley people, we have unincorporated rural communities, right? London's one of them, but Delft is smaller than London, no, Ralph?
It's referred to as Delft Colony.
Delft.
Yeah.
It's what,
Most
three?
Most
three
of the
rows.
population were my aunts and uncles and cousins. So
There you go. Oh, my. You're the first guest I can actually talk to and say that I grew up in a town bigger than yours.
Yeah. yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
First one. I got Cutler. You guys are bigger than us. Dinuba, of course, was our big city. Dinuba was like the big city, right? If we wanted to go to the movies or anything like that, we're going to Dinuba. You got dressed up. You put your tres flores in your hair. Right? You know tres flores? The smelly stuff.
Nice dress.
And but Delft, dang. Okay, so you start off in Delft. You go to Grandview.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you start getting into sports?
Man, I probably started playing. I think I started playing football when I was around 7, and I remember it was kind of a big deal at the time. I know kids are playing. I mean, even younger now. But when I played when I was 7, and Ralph probably knows for sure. I think you had to be 8 because I do remember my parents having to sign something to say like, "Hey, you're younger than you're supposed to be, but you're going to play with the 8-year-olds." And that was like the youngest league at the time, to where I do remember that. So it was right around 8 years old is kind of when I started playing sports.
Okay, and that was tackle football.
And that was tackle football, yep.
Now, I know that Dinuba at one point had multiple leagues, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Which league were you with?
They only had one league. Growing up, they had the one. Yeah, just Dinuba Youth Football
Wildcats?
was the only
At
league.
that time, it wasn't even. It was after the Wildcats. It was just Dinuba Youth Football ran by Roland Rico.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Oh, the Rico family, right?
Yep.
David Rico was the QB, right?
Yep.
And then Roland, was he the JV coach for a long time? Is that the man?
For a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is he still doing that?
No, he's now he's I want to say he's just like an advisor. Of sorts.
Oh, man. Hey, shout out to the Rico family, because when I was there watching you guys play at that time, and we'll get into that for a minute there. I remember it was like Rico, offensive coordinator, Rico, quarterback.
Yeah.
And
everyone went to school with the Rico.
There you go. So that's awesome. So you started 8 years old. I want to take a step back also and talk about your parents a little bit. Marcus McMaryion Sr., correct? And Liz, we called her Liz Corpus growing up. Now she's Liz McMaryion. She actually went to high school with myself and my sister. So I went to high school with Marcus's mom, and she was about a grade older. And I was telling you this off camera, but I was really excited. Liz, when you watch this, I just want to say thank you for recognizing me, because when you're trying to find your identity, when you're trying to fit in, sometimes you find things to try to gain attention. And one of those things is I spent $50, my last $50 on some British Knights, and nobody at school noticed them that day except for Liz Corpus, now Liz McMaryion. So tell your mom I said thank you for that.
I will.
I'll never forget it.
Message along.
Never forget it. Mac, you remember BKs?
I'll make sure to look up BKs when I leave here and figure out what they look like
BKs,
as soon as I get in my car.
Jim said he had the black and whites.
Yeah, they were I wear them on my winter formal.
I'll dress up with it. Oh yeah.
Liz was always a charitable person, so yeah.
She was. It was a thank you, Liz. So you have your parents. They get you involved. You're 7. You're playing up. And what was that first year of football like?
It was fun. I mean, I know I actually, if we're kind of talking Pop Warner football, I think I was in Dinuba for about 2 years. And then kind of like you said, they had David Rico as, someone who I have a lot of respect for, and I think he's one of the best quarterbacks to play at Dinuba too. But kind of prior to that in Pop Warner, he was kind of the guy. And everyone kind of knew, hey, David Rico's the quarterback. And I think it was probably my second year in football. I actually went to go play in Wheatley. So I played 2 years out there played on the Wheatley Hurricanes.
I thought they were the Buccaneers for some reason.
They had a couple. They had the Gators.
Packers, Wheatley Packers.
Yeah, they had a bunch of them. So there's another league out there too. That's kind of where I ended up getting, I guess, kind of my first shot at playing quarterback was in Wheatley, because David was going to be the quarterback. And, again, no animosity there at all. I have a lot of respect for David. He's a really smart quarterback too.
He was a year older than you?
He was 2 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was always kind of the guy that was ahead of me. And even, rolling into high school too was kind of the same deal. It's like, hey, you got tough shoes to fill, and there's always kind of that respect level. It's like, hey, I'm honored to kind of fill his shoes and kind of step into that role as the next quarterback at Dinuba. Yeah,
and you filled that role for sure.
Yeah.
So then you get through that. What were you like as a student on the scholastic side?
Yeah. So
I'm a
as
teacher.
far as
He's a teacher.
yeah, that's where credit to my mom for sure. I had a 4.0 all throughout. 4.2 honor roll all throughout high school. Rolling into college, even Dean's List, 4.0 in college too. I ended up getting my bachelor's and my master's. Graduated in 3 years from Oregon State. Got my master's at Fresno. So grades were always something that's really important, and just kind of we talked about a little bit off camera as far as just being from Dinuba. I think the sooner you could recognize as a young athlete that, there's really no other way to say that, we're at a disadvantage. The sooner you could recognize that if you have the exact same stats as a kid that's at Buchanan, 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to take the Buchanan
the bigger school,
to where my mom kind of let me know that at an early age, to where I had to give these coaches, I couldn't give them a single reason not to recruit me. So I had to be not only just as good, but even better in, the community, in the classroom, on the field, to where, and when a coach came, I didn't want them to leave with a single reason of doubt that we don't need this kid on our roster. And I tried to fulfill that to the best of my ability.
Wow. And I know that your dad also played a big role.
Mm-hmm.
Mac had a story that he was sharing off camera. Mac, you want to share about seeing him and his dad work?
So for the people that don't know, I actually lived just 2 houses down from Marcus. We grew up, just shout out Briarwood.
Yeah,
but
13th
Briarwood Drive in Dinuba. Yeah. But just as a kid, I'd be going, leaving for work, real early, 6 something. Had to be in Fresno, and it was, summertime or whatever, and I'm leaving, but I'd see Marcus and his dad pulling the sled, walking to the junior high, pulling that sled to get extra work in with, the little parachute thing that they'd have. And he already had a regiment at such a young age, and that was something that I thought was just like, wow, this is such a different, this is somebody that wants it. You could tell. And his dad was giving him the tools, so they, early on, you saw his commitment, and I want to also call that out, what Marcus was talking about. His academically, that was a big thing in high school. Nobody on that team had any excuse for and I was a freshman coach at the time, but
Yeah.
Marcus set the tone for everybody. You know, not just as a leadership, as you know, his play on the field, but academically, he was always, 4.2, 4.0. Nobody else had an excuse. Nobody can come to him with hey, we're not going to get this guy this week because he's not going to have grades. That was a tough sell, or to have to look, your quarterback in the eye say, I'm not going to be available. So kudos to Marcus for that, man.
Yeah, big time. I remember being ineligible part of my senior year, and that's one of the toughest lessons I ever learned in life. And it was like never again. So I'm glad you held that standard for you and your teammates.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just kind of like you was saying, as far as growing up on that street, I mean, I had guys like Lorenzo Fraga, that was a really good athlete, to where I had guys like that on my street, to where anytime I went outside to play football, I needed a receiver. My dad's like, hey, go throw with the receiver. I'd go knock on the door. Hey, man, want to come throw the ball a little bit?
And he ended up playing with you, right?
Yeah. So he was actually, I mean, probably one of the fastest receivers I threw to at Dinuba, to where it was really cool to just be able to throw routes with those guys. But, I mean, even like walking over to the junior high, I mean, I think a lot of kids get caught up in, I get it. People come from different situations, especially in Delft and in London, to where financially it's hard to afford some of that stuff. Like my dad welded some makeshift metal sled. It wasn't a fancy $300, $400 sled. It's just a makeshift thing, and we threw weights on it, and we went out there and ran and worked out. And I mean, I'd be out there throwing up and working out and all that stuff. So until this day, some probably the hardest workouts I've done.
Oh, yeah. Man, when you're throwing up, right? That's where the conditioning coach is like, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
They're excited.
For sure.
They throwing up yet? All right.
Yeah.
So, Jim, did you ever throw up practice?
No, I didn't take it seriously.
There you go.
Jim was, okay, I don't know if you know, he played football, right? Made like all league, and then became the mascot the next year.
Oh,
You know how
there
crazy
go.
that drives a
Yeah.
coach? What'd your
Yeah.
coach say to you?
You're going to do what you want to do.
He was
But
pissed. Huh?
yeah, and my dad thought I was gay. So, but not.
Yeah, Mac played for the mighty Wildcats, right, Mac?
Yeah, that was the extent of my football playing career.
But I heard you guys had a strong fight record, though. Didn't you win every halftime?
Yeah.
You guys used to end every game with a fight?
Well, yeah, because we weren't going to win the game, so we might as well win the
throw
fight.
down.
So,
Win something,
we actually got a reputation that they tell us if they saw something, they were just going to stop the game right there and then. But we had, as a matter of fact,
Nice.
on that team, we had Marcus's uncle, Jesus.
Oh.
Munoz, shout out my boy,
You out there
Jesus Munoz.
scrapping.
Jesus Munoz was out there with you guys?
Oh yeah,
That's
well, there
funny.
was I think that year we all got sponsored somehow, so there was a bunch of troubled kids that got to play that year. So
Nice.
coincidentally, we
I love that.
ended
The
in fights.
commissioner used to come up to us too. A little different rules when I played. Roland used to come up to us and say, if you guys are winning by 40, you need to stop because they're going to fine us. So that was my Pop Warner stuff, to where Roland would come up to us and say, you got to stop scoring because they're fining us. And our coach would say, well, we don't care. And they would just keep scoring.
Wow. And that was 8th, 7th, 8th grade?
Probably a little before that. I'm probably like 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade.
Okay.
I vividly remember that. They like Roland would come down all upset. Hey, you guys need to stop scoring because they're gonna fine us. And it's like, hey, I didn't know any better. I'm just playing football, as a kid. We're probably the
Just
only
having
teams that
fun.
throwing.
That was
having
Coach
fun.
Montalvo who would like to run up the score.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
he?
it was. Yeah, Coach Johnny. Yeah.
Leave no doubt.
Yeah. Nope, 100%. Yeah. Shout out Coach Johnny. Let me throw as many touchdowns as I wanted.
Oh, my God. So when did you decide it was going to be QB? Or was it always just that's what it was going to be?
Yeah, my first year, I was kind of fiddled around with like receiver and a little bit. That was kind of David was there. I think my first year I played a little bit of quarterback, a little bit receiver because David was there. But then I went to Wheatley after then. I mean, really from that point on, I played quarterback, and that was really just stemmed from my dad played quarterback. He was really good in college and did well, and that was another kind of caveat, kind of reason why my grades were so good. My dad had a lot of recruitment coming out of high school, but he didn't have the grades, so he had.
And
to
he
go
went to high school where?
San Gregonio,
And that's in San
down
Bernardino.
south. Yep, in San Bernardino.
And his teammate was?
Ronnie Rivers. Yeah.
Ronnie, Fresno people, you guys heard
Yeah,
of Ronnie Rivers?
Yeah, Marcus McMaryion, Ronnie Rivers. Yeah, Fresno State. Yeah.
And then, 20 years later?
Yeah, 2018, something like that.
It's
So
you.
yeah, so my dad's high school running back. I actually played. So both of them. Imagine your high school running back, your high school quarterback. They end up having kids. 18 years later, they're sharing the same backfield at Fresno State. So that was kind of our
Crazy.
story, to where there's always those little, oh, we were better than you guys were, and we're thinking, no, you guys weren't, no way. So that's a never-ending conversation that's always been had.
It always starts with back in my day.
Yeah, for sure.
We didn't have. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it always we remember it way better than it was.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like my story has evolved to the point where I was an all-pro receiver, like to my kids. Without,
right. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't quite that at the time. So okay, so you get through junior high, and now you train with your dad the whole time. You're preparing, and you get to high school.
Yeah.
What's your freshman year like? What's going on there?
Yeah, so I think that's really important too to kind of share with athletes that are listening, or even parents. Like I played freshman football. I think everyone's in such a rush.
Hold on. There was no demand to shove you into the varsity?
Yeah. So I think everyone's so eager to, if I don't play varsity as a freshman, I'm never going to play in college. I played freshman football, and I mean, we played really well. We had a really good team, and then my sophomore year, I played JV football. I ended up breaking my collarbone this third game. So I played 3 games on JV, so I didn't play the rest of the year. I got pulled up for varsity, but for playoffs, but I couldn't play because my collarbone was still healing. So I actually didn't even play varsity until my junior year.
Wow.
So, and obviously kind of the end story. It ended up working out for me going to a Division I school after, but I think just not being in such a rush to get to varsity, and especially nowadays, I've kind of played with helping kids get recruited. If you're a freshman and you're doing really well, college coaches, I talk with them on a daily basis. I mean, Kalen DeBoer, he's the head coach at Alabama. I was just talking with him yesterday. Obviously, Tedford, I talk with him just about every day. And all these college coaches, I could send them your tape because I personally know them, but they're not going to care unless you're a junior or senior because they can't even recruit you until that point. So just understanding a lot of the development phases are going to happen from your freshman and sophomore year, and that should be what you're most worried about. Don't go to varsity and be a backup and not play. You could develop way more being on JV and being the starter and scoring 5 touchdowns a game. That's going to do you much better in the long term than being a backup and getting in every now and then on varsity.
So lesson number 1, don't rush the process.
Yeah, 100%.
And parents, I mean, we talked about this off camera. Part of this episode, right, Mac and Jim, we all agreed is we want parents to see this.
Yeah.
Parents of kids who have aspirations to go to Division I, regardless of the sport, and get a real glimpse as to what it's like from someone who's actually done it.
Yeah.
And so step 1, don't rush it.
Yeah, and even in kind of rewinding before high school, I mean, my parents, my dad specifically, they did a really good job of allowing me to play with older kids every now and then.
Yeah.
But then also allowing me to have that overwhelming feeling of success playing against kids my age and like dominating the field. Because you have to kind of tailor that. You don't want to throw a 5th grader, say, oh, you're good enough, go play with the 7th graders and get bullied around and figure it out and grow up and get tough. And which is good to do that every once in a while to kind of humble yourself.
Yeah.
But
Find
that
a
same
balance.
extent, you got to find that balance to where, hey, I'm in 5th grade. I'm actually really excelling past kids in my class and my age, and kind of a kid to get that confidence and kind of feel good about himself. And my mom was always really good about never letting my head get too big when that stuff happened. So I would never even get close to having a big head because my mom, every time I'd come home, she'd remind me, you're not the star football player when you get home. Go take the trash out and go make your bed. So stuff like that. So,
I don't want your autograph.
Yeah. She'd keep me humble. So.
So I guess I was going to talk to you a little bit about that because, when you're a kid, I mean, 0 to 18, your parents are such a large role in all of this, and the way that they address your talent or lack thereof can dictate a lot for you. What do you think your parents did right along the way to keep you balanced between excited to continue to play the game as opposed to seeing it as just a job and a grind?
Yeah, I think they did a really good, as I said, making that distinction between, hey, you threw 5, I'll never forget my first game on varsity. I threw 5 touchdowns, 363 against Madera. And it's just one of the games that really stuck out in my head. And there's not a lot of games where I remember my stats, but that's my very first varsity start ever.
Man.
And I remember that, and I remember kind of being excited about it, but my parents really making sure, like, when I got home, like, hey, all these people want your autograph, this and that, but just kind of making that distinction. Hey, you do what you do on the football field. But in that same token, them kind of making sure I stayed structured and in my
Chores.
faith and my chores and everything.
Yeah.
Like, hey, football is what you do. It's not who you are. To where they made that
Yeah.
very clear distinction growing up early on.
I'm so glad you said that, because I feel like when you're younger and you're trying to find your identity, Mac and Jim, if you guys want to chime in on this as well, when you're younger and you're trying to find that identity, if you happen to be really good at something, that becomes
Yeah.
your identity. Oh, I'm Marcus, the football player,
Right.
not the human being or
Yeah.
person or student,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think it's important to make that distinguish the difference between the two, and not value the sport thing as much, because, as you know, we all know that can be taken away at any time.
Yeah.
And if I only identify as a football player, then what am I when that's taken from me?
Right. No.
And so for you felt like you had a balance, you were a person, and now you said faith,
Yeah.
right? As a man of faith, what
Mhm.
role does Christ play in all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's been huge for me. I mean, my parents, obviously, I'd say I really leaned into it heavy my freshman year in college. I always kind of grew up in the church and was around it. But I think when I got to Oregon State was kind of my biggest realization, to where no one was waking me up on Sunday and saying, hey, go to church. Like my mom, I didn't really have an option. Like, hey, wake up, go to church. Wake up, we're going to church. Wake up, you got
Yeah.
30 minutes, get dressed. But when you get to college, at least for me personally, in my experience and kind of my walk in faith, to where you get to college, and my first probably 8 months, I didn't go to church because I was like, hey, no one's waking me up. And then I kind of just had a realization to where it's kind of like, hey, do I actually believe in this? Or like, is this actually something I want to dive deep into? And I went through some tough times at Oregon State, just as far as going through that identity thing, to where maybe I wasn't playing as much as I was. I was always been the star. I've always been the guy, and I wasn't kind of getting that immediate kind of gratification that I typically got from football, almost that external validation, to where I had to lean heavy on something else. And I was lucky to have teammates and my parents, and kind of have just kind of Christ as like an anchor and someone to lean on to when I didn't
An
have
anchor.
people to talk to. So, yeah.
To hold you down. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that word. When I think about Christ, I think anchor, I think foundation. Something to just keep you on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
give you a safe place to land.
Yeah.
So now, I'll get to where I came into your life. You
Yeah.
didn't realize I was entering, but I was there.
Right.
I think it was my nephew. They were playing out in Santa Clarita, and they were
Mhm.
really good athletes. And this is Elijah. Shout out to Mike Elijah McCormick.
Yeah.
And then they transfer over to Dinuba. My sister moves out there. And so all of a sudden I have nephews to go watch play.
Yeah.
And I'm back at my old school, Dinuba High. And I see, that's where I first saw Mac on the sideline coaching, right? And I was like, hey, he's there. That's what happened to Ralph. He's not in, no, he's in jail. But I see, right? And I go to the games to watch these guys play. And they had a quarterback there.
Yeah.
Mr. Marcus McMaryion. I'd never met you. I didn't know anything about you, but I watched the games, and I believe it was either that year or the year after that you guys went to Valley, or you went to Valley twice, right?
Yeah, my junior year and my senior year.
Both went
Yeah.
to Valley.
Mhm.
I went to the one where you guys were at Bakersfield, Ridgeview, or
Yep.
Ridgecrest. Or,
Yeah, Ridgeview.
That was the first time.
Yep.
And then the second time, who'd you guys play?
Ridgeview again, but
Oh.
at home that time. So
Oh,
we played them
okay.
2 years in a row.
Oh. So anyway, I see you, and I'm like, wow. I had never seen you in person, and you're flinging the ball, and you're surrounded by some really good athletes and
Yeah.
coaches
Yeah.
coaches. And it was the first time that I thought to myself, hey, we got somebody who might go somewhere.
Yeah.
I know. Well, David Rico went to Cal Lutheran, correct?
Yep.
Lutheran, right?
So he went to Cal Lutheran, but this was a different level. You just you were taller, you had a bigger presence, and I was
Yeah.
like, I think this kid might go somewhere. And I had been talking to some coaches, and Mike McCormick, who's also coaching, Mikey's father had high words of praise, and then I found out that that's Liz McMaryon's son, right? So even better, and
Yeah.
now you're from Delph, even better.
Yeah.
And the story got better, and then fast forward to senior year, you guys are winning Valley. So as a former athlete, my dream in high school, I don't know if Jim, you guys had the dream too, but to have a ring, to have a Valley championship. We got as far as the second round of the playoffs when I played as a receiver. What was it like to go from all the way and almost there to actually obtaining that Valley championship? What was that season like?
Yeah. No, it was awesome. I forget exactly. I think my junior year we might have went like 12-1, and then I think in my senior year I think we went 10-3 maybe, and we ended up winning the championship that year. But it was awesome. And again, just to credit to dudes like David Rico and John Lopez before that. And it was just like a rich history of quarterback at that position. To where obviously I think I get a lot of the accolades and attention because I went on to the next level and played D1. But the history of quarterback at Dinuba was always very prominent.
Standing on shoulders, right?
Way before I ever got there. So the foundation was pretty much set when I got there, to where I think those guys kind of laid the foundation for, hey, Dinuba football, we win games here. So I kind of stepped into a role of, hey, you're supposed to win. And you're not
That
just
was the culture.
Yeah, it was the culture. You're supposed to win games. And not that schools are going to roll over because you're Dinuba, but we're going to put in the work and the time and the effort, and we're going to win these games and gut it out, basically. So I think just a credit to, all those guys that came before us to where the foundation was set. And I feel like I just tried to continue what was already in place.
Yeah. Well, speaking of culture, Mac has talked highly of this individual, and I heard a lot of great things before I started going to Dinuba High games. But you guys had a coach who was from Visalia. What was his name?
Kevinscharton.
Kevinscharton. And what was it like working with Coach Charton?
Yeah, it was awesome. And he's really, great offensive mind. And it was awesome working with him just because I think he made the offense so simple as far as from my end as a quarterback kind of playing in a system. I remember, I think it was my junior year probably. I think I had thrown like 40 touchdowns and I had it thrown an interception. And I was leading California at the time. And I think we threw a pick.
Wow.
I think the first round of playoffs, I threw my first pick of the season. So I had like 40 touchdowns and 1 interception. And we're up probably, I don't remember exactly. We're up like by 3 touchdowns. The game's over. We're just trying to march down and ice the game. And I throw a pick. And I forget who we're playing against, but they intercepted and they start cheering and jumping up. And they're so excited because they got an interception. They picked me.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of walking off like, we're shaking hands at the end of the game. They're like, we picked you.
Really?
I'm like, dude, get over. Like, you guys lost. Like, I'm going to the next round of playoffs. You guys are going to be watching me. So
They really said that?
Yeah. So all of them, the whole defense, I'd shake their hands. We picked you. I'm just like, okay, guys. I'm shaking hands. Like, good job. Good game.
Yeah.
Good game,
Well, that's the other thing I think that a lot of people don't know, because not everybody gets to be the man.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're the man, there's a microscope.
Oh, yeah.
And, man, you make one little mistake or say the wrong he's a bad sport.
Yeah.
I knew it, right? You're just ready to topple guys off. What was it like having that added pressure of the microscope on you that senior year?
Yeah, no, it was. And again, I think it's just credit to I was surrounded by a really good core group of people to kind of prepare me for stuff like that, to where I always grew up to where it was, hey, pressure's a privilege, it's not something that's pressure.
I heard that the other day.
Yeah, so it's more, I always kind of had the perspective of like, hey, you want to be in pressure situations when you get to the end of the game and it's clutch situation. Like, you want the ball in your hands, or you want to be playing meaningful games, because if there's not pressure, no one wants to play a game at the end of the year when both teams are 0-10. Nobody's watching. There's no fans there. Yeah, the toilet bowl. So no one wants to watch that. So I've always been kind of like, hey, pressure's a privilege. But it was interesting more for me, honestly, in like basketball. So kind of finishing my senior year of football, everyone kind of knew I was committed to Oregon State, going to where you get the hecklers in the crowd, hey, Beaver, or hey this, or hey that.
Really?
So
Can you hear all that?
In basketball, yeah. In football, no, not so much. But basketball, it's a lot more close environment. You could hear people. There's timeouts, there's breaks. It gets quiet, and people know when to yell at the right time. So I just kind of made fun of it.
And you played a full season of basketball?
Yep. Yeah.
What was your position?
I played point guard. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Not just like you were running the. Did you watch him play basketball?
Oh yeah, and something we just kind of briefed over it, Rob. But Marcus has had pressure from an early age. He was the first. Correct me if I'm wrong, Marcus, but he was actually the first team to actually win a Pop Warner championship.
Yeah.
We had never won a Pop Warner championship.
Oh, you guys won that too.
And he was
yeah.
pegged as the guy. Every year, like, okay, man, you got to make this happen by your senior year, and a Valley title was expected.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think, like I said, to go back to how he handled the pressure from early on, and I think going back to the balance of his parents and his faith and those things really, kept him in a good way. And like I said, a lot of the athletes around him. We Omar Duarte.
Oh yeah, we had some
great,
dudes around.
Great guys.
Yeah.
They They were ready to follow this guy.
Was Omar on defense, offense?
He was a running back, yeah.
Running back?
He was a workhorse too. So I mean, and I think just to credit, I mean, the guys around me were awesome, and they all kind of were working hard, and we all kind of were on the same page. But I think just an important lesson that always sticks out to me that my dad taught me, kind of around that junior championship, like, hey, like now you're the guy, or now this or that. But he would say, he'd always tell me growing up, like, hey, you want to be the best on your team. That's your number one goal. And then he's like, once you become the best on your team and everyone knows, then become the best in the valley. And then once you're the best in the valley, then you become the best in the state. And then he just kind of would keep growing on it. And then once you're the best in the state, then you be the best in the nation. And he said, guess what? Once you're the best in the nation and you're comfortable in that number one spot, he's like, you got a huge target on your back. He said, guess what? Now everyone's gunning for you. So you have to work 10 times as hard just to stay in that number one spot. So I know that's something that always stuck with me, to where it's like, hey, it was like almost a never ending goal. Like I was always chasing it, because it was like, all right, everyone's like, you're the best here in the valley. But then I remember in high school going to camps in LA, and then kind of like, whoa, like I'm really good on my team. Then you go to LA and you got all these guys from all these different schools. Like these guys are really good. So then I was always chasing those guys. And then so it's like, it was just a never ending thing, to where I think that's something my parents did a really good job of too, as well as just exposure to different things, to where I saw these big camps and these really big D1 school guys, and the De La Salle guys were coming to the camps, and I'm like, whoa, like look at these guys from De La Salle. And like, so it's like I was comparing myself to those guys, and so it was almost like a never-ending journey for me.
Man, that's a lot of pressure. Mac, I want to give you a chance to really shout out people that came before Marcus, when we're talking about the culture. You said that Yolanda Valdez.
Oh yeah, well Yolanda was instrumental. She was actually, her and Lisa Castillo, they were instrumental.
Shout out to Yolanda, Lisa.
They were actually instrumental in getting us that weight room. We have a weight room at Dinuba that people from Buchanan will come and say like, wow, this is nice. I didn't expect this in Dinuba. Nice I don't know if they figured we'd have like one bench with those cement
rusty
type, but they were instrumental in bringing that. They actually brought in Kevin and Coach Sharton, who changed the culture. And he
along with Michael Wright.
Wright. There's a lot of coaches instrumental, in changing the culture where previously. I mean, don't get mad, Jim, but our biggest thing was just to beat a Rossi. That was the goal.
Jim's the Cardinal.
Success was based on, did we beat a Rossi, or did we let him go paint the D red? That was in itself was the goal, and that was the bar. When Coach Sharton came along, he changed the culture around. He set the bar high. He's actually the one that also introduced something that's been instrumental, and that's the yearly trip up to Hume Lake. Hume Lake was it's a great thing for the team to bond, and Christian camp to bond, and it really opened up and got the kids to bond, and we still do it. Coach Lester right now, he's still doing it. He's continued it, but there were a lot of players. There was a lot of coaches that helped to Marcus's point. Get the culture rolling to where beating a Rossi wasn't the end goal. We needed to beat the Clovis Norths. We had to beat Edison. We were in that.
I remember
mindset.
going to my first game when you were there. Marcus was playing. You were one of the coaches on the sideline, and I was in the stands, and I was like, "This is a different vibe. This feels like a college vibe." And the band had attitude. Shout out to John
DeMiso.
No, for sure. And I think just on that culture side of it too. I know when I played at Dinuba, I lost, I want to say 5 games in my 2 years being there, to where it was almost like expected, but it was almost like that next day after a loss, it was almost like the teachers almost knew not to like ask the quarterback or the football players questions like, hey man, I just had a rough game. It was kind of almost like dead and awkward versus like being a buzz and excitement around all the time, to where it's like, it was like that serious. I felt like when I was there, to where it's like almost like out of a movie. Now that I think about it, it's like, hey, we lost on Friday. Yeah, we lost on Friday. Almost don't talk to me on Monday, because we're not going to be in a good mood, kind of thing. To where, but I think just a lot of the motivation too. I want to kind of shout out Omar here too, Duarte, to where he was a guy to where, like, just a workhorse, man. The dude was like one of the strongest guys in the weight room. But I think a lot of people don't know, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this story, but like coming from a tough financial situation growing up, to where I vividly remember we would have workouts around like 9 or 10, sometimes 11 o'clock around there. Maybe like 11 o'clock, I think, is when our lift time was. Regardless, so sometime late morning, he would wake up at 4 a.m. and go pick like fruit and work out in the fields and then come to practice and then work out. To where then I saw dudes like that and I was like, man, if this guy could go that hard and wake up that early and work out, I was like, what's my excuse? You know, so it's like there's guys like that were doing stuff like that didn't get on podcasts or didn't make it to news stations. And like, so it's like little stories like that where it's like, okay, that's really what kind of formed my work ethic and kind of gave me that. I had the blue collar dinuba work mentality, but then I was blessed with the God-given ability of being 6'2" and having a big arm and kind of having the intangibles and stuff that helped, but I kind of still worked like if I was you're talking like some that's like if I was 5'7", 130 pounds, it's like I tried to work out like that, even though I was fortunate enough to be 6'2", whatever, 180 in high school and kind of have that kind of pass the eye test, but being able to apply a Omar Duarte work ethic to it. So it was awesome.
I want to meet Omar.
Omar is now currently a supervisor at the Ace Hardware facility in
Oh,
Vesalles.
you know Omar?
Oh yeah,
Omar, we're gonna get you in here, baby.
Yeah.
We got to hear your story.
He would probably have some amazing stories, and I probably only knew half of what was actually going. That was just the surface level stuff that he actually shared. So, I mean, he'd probably be a great podcast to have.
Okay, so wow. Okay, so you get through your senior year, you win a Valley Championship. At what point in the season do you know that you're going to Oregon?
So I actually committed to Oregon State the summer going into my senior year.
Oh, okay. So you're early.
So I
what were your
knew-
offers, if you don't mind asking?
Yeah, I had offers too. Without listening, I kind of had all the West Coast except for like USC, UCLA, and Stanford.
Everyone else was
Just
in.
about everyone else I had an offer
Come
to.
on, Mark.
Yeah.
And how did you land at Oregon out of all that?
Yeah, so Coach Riley was really influential in the reason why I went there. So the recruiting process is one of the funniest times of my life, as far as just you're in class and you get a note to come out of class and it's like, hey, UCLA's here, they want to talk to you. And it's like, my phone's ringing and I'm like waving at the teacher. I'm like, hey, Washington's calling me. Like, can I answer it? And they're like, yeah, go outside.
Is it the head coach or is it the recruiter? Like
it depends on what level you're in the process. So just for general understanding for people, coaches have regional areas. So like for me, when I went to Oregon State, Coach Perry was the Fresno Central Valley guy, but he was a defensive back coach. So he's like my first line of connection. And then if you're talking to the head coach, that means it's pretty serious. Like, scholarship offers probably coming. But you typically don't talk to your position coach or the head coach until you're kind of later in the stages of getting recruited.
And do they come to the home? Do they visit you and
yeah?
have
So
dinner with your family?
Sharton probably has a lot of stories of. I mean, it was fun for him too. I would imagine getting all the cards. He would kind of post. It was kind of cool. I would look at Sharton sometimes like if he was a proud dad, he'd kind of have like the UC Davis card or the Pauley card or the UCLA card. So all the cards of coaches that met, he kind of just kept them all right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they come visit, and sometimes they'll come to practice if they're really serious. They want to watch you throw live at practice, or even like Aaron Taylor, Omar, like those guys. Like if it was after school and say we didn't have practice, I was able to text those guys and call and be like, hey, UCLA's here, Arizona's here, and they want to see me throw. Like, can you come catch? And they would 100%. Oh yeah, let me go home and get my cleats real quick. Like, all right, cool. So it's like having guys like that, or I mean, like Mario Rodriguez was, one of my best friends growing up, and Xavier Jones and Bebes and these guys. But I kind of had that core group of guys where I always knew, like, if I wanted to go work out, someone was a phone call away. And I think that's something that kept me out of trouble and different things, because they kind of knew, like, hey, like, we know where he's going.
Yeah.
And I think that's just younger athletes not being scared and being vulnerable and telling your friends, like, hey, this is something I actually want to do, to where everyone kind of knows the direction you're going. Like, hey, don't invite me to party just to drink, or if you guys are smoking. And I think I was almost naive to that kind of stuff. I didn't even know that was happening in high school, but now that I'm older, it was definitely happening. I think I was just protected, and people kind of knew, like, hey, don't invite Marcus, or we don't want to get him in trouble, to where it's like I kind of but no one would have done that unless I would have made it known, like, hey, this is the direction I'm trying to go. please help me get there, you
Yeah.
know? So
let's be honest though, too,
yeah.
Marcus. I think they wouldn't want to catch the wrath from your mom either. So
Right.
yeah. Once again,
It was-
shout out Liz.
It's like, hey, you
Yeah.
don't want Mama Liz knocking on your door.
For sure. Yeah.
So did you feel a little isolated in high school, given that you were one of the few guys going through this process that you can't even explain to others?
Yes and no. I think it was just I was so kind of disciplined in the routine that I didn't even notice it. It was just more of like, hey, you wake up, you do weights, practice, you come home, do your homework, go to sleep, and do it all over again. To where, I mean, my wife would always make fun of me by like 8:30, 9 o'clock, I'd be knocked out. And I'm still kind of the same way. If you text me after 10, I'm probably useless to the world after that. So it's like,
Did you meet your wife at dinuba High?
yeah. So my junior year, she
Oh,
was,
so high school sweethearts.
yeah. So we started
Nice.
dating in high school. Yep. So my junior year.
And did you guys know each other throughout, junior high and all that? Did she go to Grandview?
So
or-
she's 2 years older than me. So she actually went to Roosevelt too.
Okay.
So then we knew of each other, but we weren't really in like the same friend group or anything like that until high school. And it's funny, she actually, again, I didn't play varsity until my junior year. I was talking to her going into my junior year. We were kind of dating going into my junior year. She'd always kind of say like, are you even good at football? Like, I've never seen you play football. And I'm like, nah, I mean,
these
I'm
stories?
all right. Like, she's like, people say you're good, but I've never seen you. Like, are you good at football? And I'm like, yeah, I'm
you got
pretty
called
good.
out.
Yeah, so I kind of got called out. But yeah.
You're like, come to a game.
Yeah, come check it out,
That's awesome. Okay, so you get through that, and then you decide that you're going to Oregon State.
Uh-huh.
You graduate high school,
Yep.
and now you're off to Oregon that summer, or when do you leave?
Yeah, so you leave, so graduating about May, and you probably left around June 15th, probably like 2 weeks after you graduate. So kind of I stuck around and did all the fun activities, and we go senior night and all that stuff. So I stayed for all that, and then I took off probably about 2 weeks after that, and then got enrolled in. We had summer classes.
Were you in dorms or housing? How
Yeah,
does it
so
work?
your freshman year, you have to stay in the dorms at Oregon State.
Yeah.
But we had really nice dorms. They had just built them that year. So all the older guys were jealous of us. Like, oh, we stayed in these old apartments. Yeah, these old beat up dorms. And they just built you guys these, and you get to stay in these things. But it was really nice. So we stayed in Tebow Hall out there. So
Tebow. Okay, so I want to, you back me up on this. Maybe even Mac and Jim might know a little bit about this, but one of the big selling points when you come from a small rural community or low income, right, is when you get to college and you play a sport or you're in the dorms, you get a meal card, right? You remember the meal card?
Uh-huh.
So this meal card, you slide it at the cafeteria, and the cafeteria is usually buffet style, and they also have a grill, right?
Yeah.
So it's like going to Oli for Holy every day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For me, when I got to college, the meal card, I was like, I'm in heaven.
Yeah.
Jesus, is that you making pancakes? Like, right?
No,
like,
it's nice.
the little things.
Yeah.
And they had the salad bar. I felt like I was at Sizzler every day.
Yeah.
And, well, same thing, right? Oregon State.
For sure. And I think if what I try to tell a lot of kids too, like if they really knew like how much you got when you got to a Division I school, I think kids would be a lot more motivated to go play, just because, I mean, again, coming from, my parents had enough money to where I never felt poor by any means. We had everything we needed, but we weren't super wealthy either.
Yeah, you were started in Delft.
Yeah. So, we had enough to get around. I always felt rich in other things, and money, I never had trouble asking for things. But getting to Oregon State, I had 7 pairs of brand new cleats in my locker just because I could have them, and I had, if I needed an Under Armour, I just go ask the equipment guy. So it's like, it's just readily available at your hands. Or even when my parents would come visit, I'd say, hey, my mom wears this size, my sisters wear this, my dad wears this.
Really?
And they would just throw you gear. You just get free stuff to where it's like.
And the sponsor for Oregon State is who, Nike?
Yeah, Nike. And then we were actually a Nike tester school because Phil Knight's from Oregon. He went to Oregon, but it was Oregon and Oregon State. We're a Nike tester school. So, say it's, 2024, they're probably wearing stuff that doesn't come out till 2026. And then the Nike testers would come in and say, or they'd ask us like, oh, these cleats are actually, they kind of hurt a little bit on the inside of my foot. They're kind of rubbing on my pinky toe. And they're like, all right, we'll get it fixed and we'll bring you another pair. So they kind of test the stuff and products out at Oregon State and Oregon.
Cool.
And then they kind of come and release to the general market, and everyone kind of gets them once they've been tested and fitted.
Wow. Okay, so now dinuba High, right? You thought there was a microscope, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you get to Division I football
Yeah.
in Beaverton, Oregon.
Yeah.
What What's
Yeah.
the scrutiny like? What is the fans? Is there autograph signing? What's happening? For
Yeah,
you?
yeah, it's even bigger. I know that's one of the first meetings you have when you get there. I mean, you have it every
Media
single
training?
year. Yeah, media training, but then not only that, you have the local law enforcement always comes in and will talk to us during fall camp to where they're
Really?
they just let us know like, hey, and again, just kind of understanding you're living in a fishbowl is what they'd always used to tell us to where um, if a fraternity kid goes and gets in a fight, nobody's going to care. But if you get in a fight, it's going to be on the front page of the newspaper next week. To where it's like kind of understanding that, and that was just a reoccurring message. They'd kind of let us know like, hey, if you go get in a fight, it's going to be blasted everywhere. We don't get treated the same as everyone, and that's fine. I mean, we're on a pedestal, and we have to understand that, and it comes with a lot of perks, but it also comes with kind of that side note of it as well.
Was there ever a point in that whole Oregon process where you said, I can't believe this? Someone's asking for an autograph. Nike's giving me gear. Like, did you ever was there celebrities in the locker room? Was there any surreal moments?
Yeah, I mean, specifically, I probably couldn't think of one. I think the biggest thing for me was just like the access and the accessibility you had being there, and as far as just being able to reach out to local businesses and CEOs and guys, and they want to just take a meeting versus if you're just a everyday student, you might have to go through the secretary and then set up a meeting and then do this versus you kind of have that leverage in a way as an athlete at the local university. You're kind of like the professional team there to where it's like you could go directly to a lot of these owners and they want to just hang out with you or give you advice.
Wow. Okay. And then in Dinuba, you played in front of what's Dinuba hold? 3,000, 5,000 when it's maxed out?
No, I would say maybe about 2,500.
2,500.
It all depends, but yeah.
Oregon State. You go out to your first game.
Uh-huh.
How many people in this? I mean, do you hear it? Do you feel it? Does it look?
Yeah, I could be wrong. I think Oregon State's right around 40,000.
So 40,000 people.
Yeah.
You're on the field. I mean, what does that even sound like? I picture like a train, driving by.
No, it's super loud, and it's so like the biggest stadium I played in was Michigan, and it was actually Jim Harbaugh's first game.
Oh, wow.
So there's 109,000 people there, and it was rocking. But it's interesting because the big house, it's kind of built out and it pans out to where it doesn't look very big. But as people start to fill in, you realize how many people were actually there. But the loudest stadium I ever probably played in was Washington, the Huskies. Their stadium is built. It was the same architect that built the Seahawks stadium to where the sound, it goes up and it bounces straight down. So like us being this close, like I kid you not, I could scream as loud as I can at you and you'd just be looking at me like, what are you saying? So it's pretty intense. So that's where college football, you get a lot of hand signals and communicating without talking. So it's almost like a sign language that you kind of learn.
Oh, my God. Oh, Lisa and Mike Esparza in the house. Say hello to Marcus McMaryion.
Oh, hello, guys. How's it going? Good.
He actually played college football as well.
Okay.
Menlo College Oaks. That's
Awesome.
where I met him.
There you
You
go.
ever heard of Menlo?
I have not.
Menlo College is right next to Stanford.
Okay.
Down the street, little NA.
Yeah.
Where were we? NAIA, Mike? Yeah, we could have taken Marcus and his boys back in the day. No. So
Yeah.
we need a QB. Okay, so then you're at Oregon. Things don't work out there or didn't play out the way you thought they would.
Yeah.
At what point do you go, I need to find another new home?
Yeah. So I get there my red shirt year, and after, so I get there, I red shirt. So basically, for those who know, red shirting is basically you're on the team, you do everything, you weight lift, you practice, you do everything, you just don't play in the game. So basically, that year doesn't count against you. So I come back, after my red shirt year ended, Coach Riley, who originally recruited me, he ends up taking the Nebraska job.
That's right.
Yeah. So kind of had that meeting.
Lincoln
that
Riley.
happened. Yep.
It just hit me.
Yeah.
Lincoln
so
Riley.
he went
Okay.
he went to Nebraska, coached out there, and then kind of got a new coaching staff in, and they kind of, when college football, when you get a new coaching staff, they kind of bring all their recruits. So they bring the quarterback from their school, they bring all the high school kids they're recruiting.
Their picks.
They bring their picks. So it was always kind of an uphill battle after that, but typically, basically the summary, long story short, is they'd start another guy, he'd play the first 6 games, I'd start the last 6 games, play really well.
Yes.
And then the next year, the same thing happened. They start another guy, struggled, I'd come in, play the last 6 games. They say, hey, you're going to be our guy next year, and then they wait to the last minute and then end up naming the other guy the starter. So finally, my third go-around, I was kind of just like, hey, like I'm done. Like I can't do this anymore. And I was actually supposed to transfer to Fresno in the spring. And the coaches basically begged me at Oregon State saying, hey, like you're a guy, you did so much for this team last year, you're going to be the starter, don't leave. And then I didn't leave. So I didn't leave in March. And then I ended up leaving in August after fall camp when they named the starter the other guy, even though they basically begged me to stay there.
What?
So coaches, they know what they're doing. They kind of say what you want. I mean, you're a young kid. They kind of know how to wine and dine you and say the right things to get you to stay. And
Wow.
so it was interesting.
I do remember that. Mac, I'm sure you followed him at Oregon State, right?
Oh yeah.
And I do remember you coming in mid-season because everybody was tracking your career.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all like, oh, he killed it. All right, he's the starter next year. And then I was like, well, what happened to Marcus?
Yeah.
So now we get to the point where I start to get emotional, right? You see the jersey, Mike? Barely fits. I'm a big Fresno State fan.
We
Huge
all
Fresno State
see
fan.
it, Rob.
Right? Big Fresno State fan. And I'm following Marcus at this point because I knew him from the Dinuba years. And then I start to hear this rumor, right? Because news travels fast. It's a small town. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I heard, I didn't know Mac well at the time. He probably would have told me right away. But it's like, I heard that McMaryion, the Dinuba High School quarterback, is potentially coming to Fresno State. And I'm like, say it isn't so. Say it isn't so. Swear Marcus comes, I'm going to a game.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if was it the papers who released the big news.
I don't
Who
know.
came to you
It's kind
first?
of the news and kind of I don't know.
So the
who
social media, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know who released it, but
So then you got a Dinuba High quarterback, Latino, Liz's son is gonna be our starting QB. Now, did you know you were gonna be the starter? Was that kind of?
it wasn't like penciled out. I was basically told Coach Sheffer said you have a really good chance, in which I respected. I had a lot of other opportunities, like San Jose reached out, Texas reached out, Iowa reached out, so I had different options.
Yeah.
San Jose was kind of saying, hey, you're going to come in and be the starter right away, because actually that coach, the head coach Brennan, who just took the job at Arizona, he was the receiver coach at Oregon State when I was there.
Yeah.
And then took the head coaching job at San Jose. So I knew the whole staff. I knew the offense already. So he basically told me I was going to be the starter there right away. But I kind of respected the fact that Coach Tedford said, you have a really good opportunity and you just have to trust me in that, but you're going to have to earn it. And I don't know if that's just my Dinuba roots in me or something, but I kind of respected the fact that he wasn't just going to lay over and say, you're our guy, you're our savior, come take the team. It was more of a, hey, you have a good opportunity and trust me when I say that, but you're going to have to earn it and earn the respect of your teammates, basically.
So you came in, and at that point, was there ever a time growing up where you thought about Fresno State? I mean, were you a fan growing up like we were? Or?
Yeah. I was a fan of Fresno State. I would think more so, I would think about it a lot when I was getting recruited. I was always kind of confused. So I actually never had an offer from Fresno State in high school. Yeah.
Fresno State.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna talk after this.
So they were late to the
RobLive's
game.
coming to your offices. You didn't have an offer. Marcus
No.
McMaryion didn't have an offer from Fresno State.
Yeah. The school, it was weird,
I'm calling him out.
because they were there every day at practice,
What?
right? And again, that was the staff before Tedford. So,
Oh, sorry, Coach.
Yeah. So that was the staff before they got there. But they were there every day. They just never ended up offering a scholarship. And I don't know if it was because I had like offers from Arizona and Washington, Arizona State,
Yeah.
and bigger schools. So maybe they didn't want to offer.
Talk
They didn't
themselves
wanna-
out.
Maybe they didn't want to waste an offer. Maybe that's what they looked at it as. But again, coming out of high school, I probably wouldn't have went to Fresno State if I'm being honest with myself. I was just ready to kind of leave and develop and kind of
Something
just
outside.
experience college kind of on my own. So
Yeah.
that was kind of my mindset coming out of high school. And obviously it worked out coming back full circle, being able to play at State as coming back more mature and kind of realizing like if I do what I do, if I have all that success that I had at Fresno State at Oregon State, it probably doesn't mean half as much just because of the impact it had as far as just being able to play in front of aunts and uncles and former
Oh,
coaches like
man.
Ralph and being able everyone to kind of be there,
Yeah.
It just made it that much more special to kind of do it in front of people that I cared about and cared about me.
So I'll put it to you this way, Marcus. As a teacher, and my friends do a good job, Mike especially, and Eric. They do a good job of reminding me as a teacher that look, you have this still pond, right? And you drop a pebble. You don't stick around to see where the ripple effect is going, right? You just move on to the next thing, and you don't realize how many people you're affecting.
Right.
You coming to Fresno State and being of your background and where you came from and being a Dinuba High alum. I mean, Mac will tell you the same thing, I'm sure, is like the ripple effect it made to say that, hey, a Dinuba High graduate is now the starting quarterback for Fresno State.
Right.
My dreams are possible as well. May not even
Yeah.
be in football, maybe in something else, but to see one of our
Yeah.
folks, you know, for lack of a better term, doing something great, it's a ripple effect that to
Yeah.
this day continues.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sure there's a lot of young kids who had written off certain possibilities in their mind that now became realities because Marcus did it.
Yeah.
I took my two sons to the game when you first played. It was when Derekcarr had his jersey retired.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Derek's a Valley kid, but he's from Bakersfield.
Yeah.
He went to a private school. I mean, it's a little different.
Yeah.
And then we have Marcus, public school kid, right? We either knew him, coached him, or related to him in some way, right?
Mhm.
And to watch you in that stadium,
Yeah.
when you came running out the first time, I looked over at my sons and they're like, "Dad, that Marcus, he went to your school, right?" Like, "Yeah, son, he was an emperor." And then they're like, "Dad, why are you crying?" I'm like, "Why? You're supposed to, you're supposed to be excited. Why are you crying?" Because they were little.
Yeah.
"Why are you crying, Dad?" I said, "No, son, I'll explain to you later."
Yeah.
Because I knew what you being there could do for the rest of us.
Yeah.
The pride,
That's
Rob,
awesome.
from it was just people that probably didn't even know Marcus personally,
Yeah,
but you know
I didn't.
Yeah, but and Marcus, correct me if I'm wrong, but Briarwood, that street that we lived on, where Marcus grew up, there was some people there that called it a long time ago. There's a guy named Eddie Valdez
Yeah.
who
Eddie
told.
and
I
Kenya.
remember him. I don't know if you remember it, Marcus, but I remember him telling you, you're going somewhere. You're going to do something. It was like I said, the pressure he had from an early age that he was going to be the guy to make it. The way he handled it, the way he went on to excel, and the biggest thing that I remember was that not only was he coming back to Fresno State, he already had his bachelor's degree. He completed his bachelor's degree in
3 years.
In
huh?
3 years.
Yeah.
And everybody, it just
I took 7.
it just spoke volumes, and we just the pride.
I felt it. I didn't know
thank
it,
you
but
guys. I appreciate that. And I think
Yeah.
even to add a note, I think something that a lot of people don't even know, to where after my junior year, obviously I was really successful my junior year. I led California and I was ranked, I think,
oh, I know.
the number 15 quarterback in the nation. I played on a 7-on-7 team, and my buddy Micaiah Quick was going to Central at the time. He was a 5-star recruit. And I had a couple offers at the time, but nothing like he had. He probably had 30 offers at the time to Oklahoma, all these different schools, to where my junior year, I actually really battled if I was going to transfer or not. I almost went to Central High School with them because there are 5-star kids there. They're all getting recruited, and they say, we have everything but a quarterback, and you plug and play. You think if I have a 5-star receiver,
Yeah.
he's going to be doing some things that I've never seen before, and I'm
Yeah.
going to be playing quarterback. And just by a byproduct of his success, it's going to rub off on me too, and I'm going to start getting offers on accident, to where that was something I kind of heavily battled and had some long family discussions about if I should make that move.
Oh man, I'm glad. So basically, you were LeBron thinking about leaving the Cavs
yeah, right.
to go to the Heat.
Yeah, for sure. And it's probably hard to actually believe me, but one of the pivotal things that I made the decision, I remember talking with my mom and my dad. I said, if I jump ship, I'll never be able to come back to Dinuba and really look a kid in his eyes and said, I did exactly what you did. And that was something I
So
say
glad you-
wholeheartedly that
Yeah.
was the deciding factor of why I didn't leave, because I wanted to get invited back to Dinuba schools and be able to talk and say, I was here from my freshman to senior year, and I did exactly what you did, and it's possible for you to do the exact same thing. Because if I would have left my senior year, I know myself as a high school kid, you could just say, oh, he jumped ship his senior year. He didn't do it all from Dinuba, to
Yeah.
where that was really a deciding factor, to where I wanted to be able to come back and look a high school kid in the eyes and say, hey, I did exactly what you did, and I'm an open book. Ask me whatever questions you want.
That's so important. I didn't know that. And do a lot of people know this story?
No, a lot of people don't. If you're kind of in
RobLive
my
exclusive,
yeah,
right here. You want to hear it?
Yeah, if you're in my inner circle, you kind of know those conversations were happening. But and again, that's something we weren't like very public with as a family. We kind of just kept it behind, like, hey, all these schools are trying to get you to go to their high school.
Yeah.
And then obviously, as my parents, they would present both sides of it. You know, they'd say, hey, do you want to stay in your grassroots and stay with your friends and everything you've built the last 15 years here? Or do you want to basically secure a future, and it's going to be easier to get recruited from a bigger school? And I think that's something my parents did a really good job of, is not ignoring the facts to where you are at a disadvantage. But the sooner you could almost use kind of your disadvantage to an advantage and say, hey, this is why you should actually recruit me, because I'm built for adversity and I'm built for these things and I don't jump ship and I'm loyal and different things like that. So just kind of using whatever cards you're dealt, kind of biblical. They say, like, use your mess as your message, kind of, in a way.
God's plan.
Yeah.
Wow. So then you get to Fresno. You do an amazing job there. You're there for what, 2 years? Was it 2 years?
Yeah, just under 2 years. Yeah, about a year and a half. I kind of broke that down the other day. So I got there in August, played season 2 weeks later, and then ended up leaving.
2 weeks.
Yeah. So that
when
was
you
a
were
roller
there,
coaster.
okay, when you came in, what was the reception like from the other QBs and the team?
Yeah, it was definitely open arms. It was really cool because I was texting a couple of them, but like you said, the Valley's kind of a close-knit kind of community, to where I remember after every game Friday night, at 10 o'clock, they kind of air all the other guys that are playing. So I kind of knew, like, Josh Hokett was from Clovis, DeJounte O'Neal, so I kind of recognized names, or I would always try to keep up with guys like, oh, this quarterback threw this many touchdowns, I want to try to beat him, or next week. Or so kind of we all kind of knew of each other, so that was really cool kind of coming into that situation, to where it was definitely open arms. As far as like the quarterback situation, I think my biggest thing was I just wanted to come in and put my head down. And I had been in such a quarterback drama, controversy, kind of like roller coaster ride at Oregon State. I knew if I left it close and left it up to the coaches, then I'm kind of leaving it up to fate at that point, to where I knew when I came into Fresno State, I had to just not be a little bit better than the kid, but I had to be 10 times, and everyone's like, why the heck isn't he the starting quarterback?
How many guys were competing at that time when you came in?
There's Chase and Virgil was a starting quarterback, and he started all the year before.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, Chase and Virgil was a starting quarterback, and then Jorge Reyna was a junior college kid that had just came in the spring, so he got there a couple years before me, or a couple months before me. So it was really him, Jorge, and then myself. So I was really having to get caught up to speed pretty quick as far as learning the playbook and everything.
I remember early in the season, it would be Virgil starting the game, right? And then you'd come in.
Yep, yeah. So he started.
And I remember at that time, like, give him a full game.
Yeah. So a lot of that, too, was, again, I learned the offense in probably 2.5 weeks. So it's like a lot of it, they were kind of slowly building me into it, because honestly, I probably didn't know the whole playbook to just get thrown into the game, to where I knew enough to get in and run some plays. But as far as understanding the whole offense, it was still kind of, I ended up starting the second half of Washington, which was our 4th game of the year, and then I started from then on out.
And just kept, and then you had that whole next season.
Yep, yeah. So just kind of didn't look back from there.
And being at Fresno State, what was it like to be a Bulldog while living in the Valley? Were you commuting from home? Were you living on campus? What was the experience there off the field? Yeah,
so I was living probably about 10, 15 minutes from campus. I was living in Harlan Ranch, like off the 168 out there when I was playing.
Okay.
But it was awesome. I mean, the experience, it's kind of funny now looking back on it. Like, me and my girlfriend and my wife, my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, we didn't go out to dinner a ton just because, like, you would get recognized and kind of.
Yeah,
it was
I knew
awesome.
You guys from Facebook. I did follow you guys on Facebook,
which we definitely appreciate. And I would never tell people no if they wanted to take pictures or get autographs, but it would get to a point sometimes it was like, man, I just kind of want to have dinner.
I just want to eat.
But it's kind of, I tell myself, I blame myself. I had the big blonde mohawk in high school, in college, so it was kind of hard for me to hide. You know,
that was true.
You see a big tall guy that big blonde mohawk, it's probably like, who the heck is that guy?
That's McMaryion.
Yeah. So I kind of give myself away.
Wow. So when did you first start signing autographs? I signed my first autograph. Did I tell you guys?
Maybe.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt for a second. I signed my first autograph last weekend at Kings River Elementary. I was speaking there, and I showed them that I had a YouTube channel. And they're like, so I didn't know. Do I Do I sign
love
RobLive?
that. Yeah.
Or do I
That's
sign?
I
awesome.
heard otherwise, Rob. I heard you were actually just signing a debt card that you never paid. Your mom still
It
owed
was
some
my
money
lottery
for
ticket.
lunches. So
That might be true. So when did you first start signing autographs?
I'd probably say high school around when I started playing like varsity.
Was it weird, or did you envision that? Was that part of your manifestation, visualization type deal?
No, not so much. I thought it was cool, especially when younger kids would come up and stuff like that.
Were you signing balls? Were you signing?
Yeah, a little of everything. I mean, people would bring footballs or sign their T-shirts or just different things like that. I think
In college, it just gets worse.
Yeah. In college, you sign more, but it's fun. It's just having that recognition and kind of understanding. It just kind of reminds you, like, hey, you are on a pedestal, and kind of reminds you to, like, hey, you have to carry yourself and hold yourself to a higher standard in just everything you're doing, because we can't just go out to a restaurant and have a bunch of drinks. Even though all of us are over 21, I can't necessarily go to a restaurant and just drink a ton, and it's just bad because people are watching you and people know, to where it's like kind of having that understanding of things too.
We saw Marcos at Chiquitos. He was faded.
yeah, exactly.
He was doing the running man.
Trying to avoid those stories.
Threw up in the parking lot.
he has no idea where Chiquitos is, Rob. You just aged yourself right now.
Chiquitos. Mike knows Chiquitos. That was Chiquitos was like the most beat up off. Where was it at? In Fresno?
Is it like Belmont or
Like Belmont, like the rough part of Fresno. This is a rough club.
Yeah.
And you go into Chiquitos, every other guy had a teardrop, huh?
Oh man.
On his.
Yeah.
I took
Careful.
Mike. Mike's like, really?
That's funny.
But all right, so now college is done.
Mm-hmm.
You get your master's.
Yeah.
Throughout all this time. Master's was in what?
Kinesiology, sports administration.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what was your vision for yourself post college career?
Yeah, so I got a small stint. I did the rookie mini camp with the Raiders, and I made it to
Can we
training
get a
camp.
clap on that? The
Yeah,
Raiders?
Yeah. I was with the Raiders. Yeah.
No, he's a Niner fan. He's a Niner fan.
Niner fan. Yeah.
You should check the score. I want to know what's going on.
And then ended up doing training camp with the Saints. So I was there for a couple weeks, and that was, an awesome experience. Just having like Drew Brees as your partner or your teammate. My locker was 2 over from him, and him just kind of walking up to me and asking how the playbook's going, and I'm kind of just like, oh, it's going good, Drew. And then he walks away, and you're like, dude, I was just talking with Drew Brees. you're like, I used to use you on Madden when I was a little kid, So it's like it's surreal to kind of be around those guys.
He's
probably 5'10".
5'10".
Yeah, he's not huge, but I think it's cool just to see those guys. Or even when I got with the Raiders, Josh Jacobs was there, Hunter Renfrow, so I kind of came in around the same time. So it's cool to see those guys, but just, the coolest thing too for the younger kids that are still listening to, where it's like just to realize like they're just normal guys that happen to be really good at football. It's like you almost kind of see them and you think they're Superman or they do things really cool, but it's just like. They're just guys that work tirelessly, and they're just really good at what they do.
And derekcarr, you were there with Derek.
Yeah.
Right?
So I'm really close with Derek and Dave too.
So when you become a bulldog as far as QB, did the alumni start reaching out? Do you start to get texts and phone calls from past quarterbacks? Is it a fraternity?
Yeah. So I actually kind of have a cool story on that. So when I was at Fresno State, we're actually working out in the weight room, and Derek showed up in the off season one of these random days, probably around this time of the year, and showed up in the weight room, and he kind of talked to the team real quick, guys. We were breaking down, hyped us up, yada yada yada, broke it down, and then I'm talking to him after. He kind of comes up to me, he's like, "Hey, you're the quarterback, good luck, yada yada," and he's like, "Hey, get my number from Coach Harp, who was his receiver at the time." And then I get his number from Josh Harper. He gives me his number, and it's funny. I tell people it's almost like a high school crush. I was like, dang, do I text him right now? Like, do I wait? Do I wait a day? Do I wait 2 days? Do I wait a week? So I'm kind of like,
want to play it cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to play it cool. Like, I don't want to be weird, So I was like, I don't want to blow him up. So then I ended up texting him like a day or two later. I don't remember when, but I texted him like a day or two later. I'm like, hey, what's up, Derek? It's Marcus. I got your number from Harp. And he reaches out, and he's like, he texts me, and he says, oh, I'm surprised you text me. And I'm thinking, that's stupid. Like, you're derekcarr. Like, why wouldn't I text you? So I'm kind of thinking that in my head, and I text him back, and I just put like a laughing face. Something like, well, what do you mean? And he said he's actually given his number to every single quarterback at Fresno State since he left, and I'm the first one to text him. And I don't know if that's
can I faint for a second?
Yeah. Yeah,
what?
So I don't know if that's a pride thing or ego thing or what it is. I can't speak for the other
got this,
quarterbacks.
Derek.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to where I did text him and able to build a relationship to where I was just literally in a group text with Dave and Derek yesterday. We're kind of talking about him Dave was talking
Were you
about some
guys
Lane
talking about
Kiffin stories
EECU?
and stuff like that. No, he's talking about some Lane Kiffin stories and stuff. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're sharing stuff
Lane
like
Kiffin.
that. But it's like building a relationship with those guys. It was kind of, I mean, he's such a gracious guy. I mean, just as far as like what you see on camera, what I respect about him most, he's the exact same dude in a private text
Man.
message when nobody's around. Like he's just that whole family. I mean, Roger the dad. I mean, Dave would let me train quarterbacks at his house when I had just finished and I wasn't sure what I was doing when I was signed in Canada, going to Calgary. I was just kind of doing
Oh, you went
stuff.
to Canada?
So I signed during COVID. So I was signed for 2 years and I never actually went.
Okay.
But I was doing all the weekly Zoom calls and all this kind of stuff to where when it came down to it, I ended up picking up a sales job in between. I was making decent living to where I would have actually, believe it or not, lost money to go play in Canada. So,
wow.
I didn't actually end up going to Canada.
The Rock played in Canada. I remember.
Yeah. So, I mean, that family, they're all awesome and they're just super good people.
Man, just like I pictured it.
You know, Rob,
Derek-
we briefed over, or we went over something that I think we should have talked about.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about the accolade. One of the biggest ones that Marcus was. Correct me if I'm wrong, Marcus. He was the first Fresno State quarterback to beat Boise in Boise.
Oh yeah.
And
That was the snow game, right?
Yep.
Oh my God. Talk about that game.
Yeah, that game was awesome. I mean, the snow, I'll tell you guys firsthand, it's a lot cooler to watch than it is to play in it. It's not as fun to play in a snow game because, I mean, you get tackled and your hand's all wet and it's freezing, first of all. It's really cold, and you try to wipe your hand and your whole pant is just
Did you have a
slush.
little warmer?
Yeah, but I mean, after you get tackled one time, I think warmer goes. It's not doing
not even-
anything anymore.
It's just a soggy
yeah.
towel.
Yeah, then you're trying to wipe your hand and cool off. But, I mean, it was an awesome experience, and just kind of the fashion we won it in.
That was Ronnie Rivers, right?
Yeah, the pitch right at the end. So
yeah.
that was
Thank you for bringing that up.
well, the reason I brought it up is I don't know if Marcus remembers, but it was a big thing. First of all, that we were gonna beat Boise in Boise, which had never been done,
yeah.
Yeah.
and it was gonna be done with a Dinuba guy. It was gonna be done with
I
an
know,
emperor.
Yes.
As soon as it got
I
done,
remember watching that.
as soon as it got done, I had made this sign about 4 or 5 weeks before when I think it was coming out that we were going to play Boise in Boise. I believed it. I knew it.
Yeah.
I made a sign that said MarcusMcMaryion Drive and put it over our old street sign. The Briarwood.
You got pictures of that?
Yeah, I do.
That picture actually got to me prior to the game too, so I appreciate
Oh,
you
my
doing that. Yeah.
God.
I don't remember who sent it to me, but someone
Great
got
call.
it to me, so I remember seeing that before. But that game was awesome and just kind of ended in a real dramatic fashion too. And I mean, just kind of that play in itself, I remember. I've told this story a couple times, but we ran that play. We installed the game is in December, right? So we installed that play in August in fall camp, and we probably ran it twice all year. So the coaches called the play, and everyone kind of looked at them like, we don't even know what you're calling. Like, we haven't ran that play in months. This is the end of the year. Then when they called that pitch play, I kind of looked at the coach and I told him there's so many things that could go wrong on a pitch play, especially in the snow, let alone. So if I would have had a couple more seconds, if you watch the play over, I'm actually walking up to the line of scrimmage, and I'm about to change the play to there's nobody on the left-hand side, so I was going to run an inside zone, and I was going to keep it and just sprint to the corner. But I walk up, and I look at the play clock, and there's like 6 seconds left, and I say, I don't have enough time to communicate this to everybody, like what I'm thinking I want to do. So I kind of just back up and say, hey, this is a game. It is what it is at this point. We got to live with it and die by it. So, and it ended up working out, obviously. And the play it looks great and it's awesome, but our tight end blocks the wrong person. I'm pitching off the wrong person. So Ronnie Rivers actually makes 2 guys miss when he should have just made 1 guy miss. So that play, I mean, a little bit of luck, a little bit of skill, a little bit of everything. So
Looks great on camera.
yeah, it looks good on camera,
That's amazing. Yeah, I remember that game. You're right, man.
So I like to give Dave and Derek stuff too. I'm the winningest quarterback over there, so I like I hold that
You
over
guys
them
are-
there,
Derek?
You
You guys hear that?
Yeah.
Dave, I got your jersey.
Yeah.
Little snug.
Yeah.
This is the David Carr jersey. So because David was the first Carr, and David had an amazing career.
Yeah.
And when he went to the Texans, man, that was tough for me to watch because
those guys can still sling it, man. Dave
Still?
Dave's
Wow.
out there throwing the ball. Yeah. He looks like he's in the NFL still. He's still in really good
man,
shape too.
I would have loved to see him, well, your journey's your journey.
Yeah.
So getting it back to your journey, you leave college, you try the pro thing a little while, and now what is your focus today?
Yeah, so now I'm back. I did sales for about 3 years when I finished and I was doing that. But now I'm actually back at Fresno State, and I'm involved with the NIL now. So like the name, image, and likeness, how athletes could use their brand to promote companies and businesses, and kind of just helping with that.
I was going to ask him, like, how
Yeah.
does that work? I'm a new athlete. I get recruited. Do I sign a contract or do I get offers? How does that work?
So basically the collective that I'm going to be signing for it next week, actually. So I'll be kind of fully taken off to where the collective is a third party associate of the university. So it's not fully integrated in the university, but we have partnership agreements with certain athletes, kind of a lot of the top athletes at the university, that basically we pay monthly XYZ number. And I think the biggest thing is, I mean, we're paying some of these guys $20,000-$30,000. I think people hear NIL and they think of USC $1 million, $2 million. Like,
I'll take 30.
yeah,
30,000.
yeah. So it's, I mean, guys, we're giving them enough to kind of make a living, and hey, you don't have to worry about when the end of the month if you could like get an extra cheeseburger or something like that. So stuff like that, making sure guys are taken care of that way.
Wow.
There was a lot of scrutiny with that, Rob. I mean, you talk about the previous before that. I mean,
Yeah.
those teams. I want to say that basketball team when Tark was here. I mean, those guys, they were under such scrutiny for receiving free soups at restaurants and stuff like that. It
Yeah.
was for
The
the college
NCAA,
athlete.
yeah.
I always said this was long overdue.
So there's a win for
sure.
college
Yeah,
athletes.
because even like if I would have gone when I played,
Did you wait? When did it come into
It
effect?
came in effect like a year or two after I played. So I
Marcus was
just
like,
missed it. Yeah.
really?
Yeah, I probably missed out on a lot of money.
The marquee player on the Fresno State team had a jersey in the store, right? There was a McMaryion jersey.
Yeah,
What number were you?
6.
You were 6.
Yep.
It was at high school too?
No, in high school I wore 10.
10. Then you
Yep.
switched to 6, and
Yep.
and you could have been.
Yeah, no, I mean I saw my jersey all over there, and I probably could have got a percentage of it nowadays. Which is tough. But again, I think the biggest thing is just getting people to understand that we're getting athletes just to have a better life on and off the field, to where no one's making millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's just to kind of improve their day-to-day kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
To where I think a lot of people don't know, like when you're on scholarship, 85% of athletes on scholarship are actually living below the poverty level. So, I mean, they're not making any money in college.
And you don't really have time to work because your job is your sport.
Yeah, so it's kind of a double whammy to where I fully understand, hey, we're getting our school paid for, which is a huge thing that a lot of people are taking on loans to go to school and finish time. We're getting that paid for. But, I mean, guys I think their scholarship checks are right around $1,800. And, I mean, if you want to live by yourself, I know guys that live by themselves on the team right now, the rent's $1,700. So, I mean, that leaves you $100
For groceries.
for utilities, for everything else.
Oh,
So
man.
it's like, we're just trying to make sure. And again, you could be like, oh, well, he shouldn't live by himself. It's like, okay, well, he doesn't live by himself, and now he's paying $900. So now he has $900 for the whole month to figure it out. So it's like, we're just trying to give these guys an extra $1,000 to be like, hey, don't stress about it. To where I remember being in college and having an extra $200, and I thought I was rich, like, oh, I'll cover your meal. The guy's like, hey, I'm in the negative, bro. Can you cover me? I have 4 days until the month ends, until I get my next check, and I have negative 20 in my bank account. Can you buy me dinner? Like, yeah, bro, I got you. I have $300. I'm rich, So it's like just trying to get guys like, hey, if the schools are bringing in millions of dollars and things, so it's like just making sure guys are taken care of.
Wow. Now,
this is the kind of resource, Rob. I say that for now, anybody coming through Dinuba, this is something we'd never have. We'd never have a resource of anybody to come and give us this kind of insight at this level, because nobody ever did it before,
Right, you're the first.
And this is the kind of thing that
pioneer.
Yeah. And
So-
I think it's big too. I mean, you got guys like Rob Adolph who did it. It was kind of the one that set the foundation too, to where it's like I kind of looked stuff up like that though. I think when I was in high school, I looked stuff up to be like, okay,
He had all the records.
yeah. So who has all the records? Like, hey, it's Rob Adolph. He played at USC, won a lot of national championships. Probably the most decorated person ever come out of Dinuba.
He won a national championship?
Yeah, in baseball.
and football. I
And
believe he had
football.
both.
Yeah. I think he got caught behind a really good quarterback. I don't remember
Yeah.
who it was. So he didn't play a ton football.
Played, I think my dad was a sophomore when he was a senior. But yeah,
Wow.
before
Yeah.
Marcus and a couple other athletes.
Yeah.
He
was the most
So
Yeah,
that's the
he
biggest
decorated.
thing too. I try to, again, I kind of knew that stuff going into my freshman year. I was kind of looking up like who was the last one to go to, where then it's like, okay, you have, I think Adolph was like 72 or 3 or something like that, to where it's like, okay, you have basically
Whole generation.
30
two generations.
years of athletes that went through Dinuba that didn't go D1.
Yeah.
And granted, so I'm sure there's a lot of really good ones in between there, but they didn't go on a full ride scholarship D1. So then I kind of had the perspective like, okay, well, what makes you different than all these 30 years worth of athletes where it's like, okay, well, I have to be that much more committed, that much more dedicated, that much more disciplined to achieve something that all these other athletes weren't able to kind of achieve. So I think kind of having that perspective and kind of paying respect to guys who came before me and, again, kind of laid the foundation, but then trying to take it to the next level.
Yeah. Well, in my research, speaking of taking it to the next level, I found that you have, would you call it a quarterback academy or where you train guys?
So I've been training quarterbacks, kind of one-on-one personal training, and kind of in the middle of trying to figure out if I'm going to launch like a mental kind of side, kind of improving that to where that's, again, the whole other side of it, to where I think it's good for young athletes to understand to where your talent's only going to kind of take you so far. When you get to college, that was the biggest culture and reality shock I had when I got to Oregon State, because you're so used to relying on your talent and just being, frankly, more talented than everyone. Then you get to college and everyone's you got Gatorade Players of the Year from Tennessee, and you got state champions from Texas, and you got guys from Ohio, and it's like, oh, I'm a little kid from Dinuba, you know. So it's like kind of realizing that, and then it's like a culture shock. But then you realize not everyone plays in college. I mean, I was really fortunate to play my freshman year. I played all 4 years after my redshirt year. There was guys there that were redshirt juniors and seniors that had been in college for 5 or 6 years and only played on special teams. So kind of having that sense of gratitude. Obviously, I'm always pushing for more, and I want to start, and I want to be All-American and this and that. But then having that sense of being present, too, and saying, hey, man, like, you're playing on national television every single week. There's thousands of people watching you, 40,000 plus every week, not including all the TV viewership, to where kind of being able to just take a deep breath and kind of appreciate where I was at too.
Yeah, to have that perspective. Now, some of the people that I'm hoping watch this episode will be, as me and Mac and Jim talked about, D1 parents.
Mm-hmm.
They have the dreams for the kid.
Yeah.
Right. So what's some valuable insight you could give to a parent who now has, say, a freshman in high school, and he's kind of got a plan laid out, whether it be football, baseball, volleyball, right, soccer.
Yeah.
What would you advise these parents in terms of leading their kids down a path that could lead to this?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a huge advocate for like multi-sport athletes, as far as from your freshman or your sophomore year. I think after your sophomore, if you want to kind of choose a particular sport, that's up to your discretion. But I think your freshman, sophomore year, playing different sports is really important. Like, I played actually all the way through my senior year. I played basketball, football, and baseball, and then I ran track, to where I stopped baseball after my freshman year and just went to track because I was slowly starting to make the decision that I wanted to play football. But I honestly didn't even make the decision that I was going to be a Division I football player until my junior year. Probably after my sophomore year is when I kind of made the decision, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure I'm going and rowing in the right direction towards football.
So here you are as a senior, committed to Oregon for football, and you're the point guard on the basketball team.
Yeah.
Did coaches embrace that, or were coaches like, you're gonna get hurt, or what was the support like for that?
The coaching staff that recruited me at Oregon State was really open to it. I know some guys, coaching staffs aren't. They don't want athletes doing other sports, to where they kind of knew I was a multi-sport athlete when they recruited me. And that's something they actually saw as advantageous and a reason they wanted to recruit me, because you develop different skills being a basketball player, playing point guard, that you can't necessarily develop playing just quarterback. So I think kind of having that understanding of multi-sport background it was really cool. And I mean, it paid big dividends when I got to Oregon State, being able to do different things, because guys we'd go play at the rec and stuff like that, and you'd be surprised how many 6'1", 220-pound, 4% body fat guys dribble a basketball like a 2-year-old. So that was a leg.
I never wanted that for my kids. I never wanted to be this guy.
That was a leg up I had when I got there. But then you get a lot of those guys who are like, man, in Texas or at this school, in 7th grade, you pick a sport, and that's what you do all year. You know,
I'm not a fan. You guys, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah.
Palomalo had a great take on it, and he also said that, to just devote yourself to one sport at such a young age, commit, it's not that great. And I agree with that.
So do I. Mike he was one of the first freshmen to start at DB for Menlo, but he was a pole vaulter. Correct me if I'm wrong. So and that was all the way through your senior year.
Yeah. No, and it's difficult. I think from a parent perspective too. Obviously, I've given my parents a ton of credit on this podcast, but even kind of taking a step further on the other side of it is, I almost quit football in 8th grade because I was so burnt out because basically all the sports would overlap, So our teams were always pretty good. We had a really good class, so we'd always run into playoffs and championships. So we would be, I don't know the exact sports, but football would go over into basketball. So the JV would kind of hold it down, or like the younger kids, and then we'd come over and then we'd all start to where in 8th grade, I remember just like I didn't go to maybe the first week of football practice because I didn't want to play because I was just so burnt out from like I literally just finished basketball. We just went into playoffs, and I finished the championship on Saturday, and I have practice on Monday for the next sport. So it was like, man, I got a day to recover, and then I jump into the next sport to where that's where something I want to be super conscious of my kids when they grow up, Malachi and Maverick, to where it's like, hey, obviously helping them, but giving them enough grace to be like, hey, this is something that they want to do, to where if they need a break, give them a break.
You know what? I was on chime in. What's different about what coming from Rossi, Dinuba? I teach here at Liberty High School.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big part of that is a small school.
Yeah.
When you have big schools, you're kind of focused on one sport.
Yeah.
You don't really have that option because the coaches, the program, and everything is so big.
Yeah, it's so demanding.
Yeah. So when we're in small sports, or small schools, like I have a couple kids that are like, I'm waiting for them to get out of our sport to come along to my program. Yeah. So I teach tennis. So it's like, all of a sudden, you have basketball playing at the same time track is playing. Yeah. And so you got to wait. So it's like as soon as they're done, you're like, boom,
overlapping.
Overlapping.
Yeah.
And so that could be an aspect of the kids get burned out and everything. But I do think it gives that kid a sense of direction, camaraderie about the school and the programs that they want to be into.
Yeah. So sometimes I feel like a lot of times my friends were seasonal because I had some friends that didn't play all sports. Like Marroquin Contreras was a really good basketball player, point guard. I played with him, right? But he played baseball, and we were really good like those 2 seasons when they went back. But there was a gap in between there to where I would go play football, and he wouldn't play football. So then I'd have my football group of friends that I'd hang out with. Yeah. Then once the next sport rolled on, I kind of have that group of friends to where, I'm super blessed that my parents put me into sports because I didn't have time to get in trouble, honestly. When outside of practice and homework and everything I was doing, I was too tired to go get in trouble and go hang out in places I shouldn't be.
All right. So what was the biggest Marcus McMaryion violation as a kid? Did you sneak out of the house?
Oh, man. I couldn't even tell you. I was...
Take the car?
I was a really
boring kid. Throw him under the bus already, right?
Yeah. I want to hear something.
What'd you do wrong?
I wish I had some. I was such a boring kid. The worst possible thing that probably happened is I'd probably talk too much in class, and the teacher would call the house, and I'd get home and delete it before I got there or something. So that's probably my worst.
Do you hear that, Liz?
Yeah, that's probably the worst thing I've ever done. But again, small town Dinuba, my mom would find out anyway. So I probably wouldn't tell 1 or 2 times. Right. But
okay, so let's now you're a father, your husband and a father.
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
Malachi will be 3 next month, and then Maverick just turned 1 in November.
All right, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And wait, boys or girls?
2 boys. Yeah.
2 boys.
Yep.
And their journey, obviously, may at one point include sports.
Yeah.
What's your approach? Is it you're gonna let them pick early, or you kind of let them try everything? Like,
yeah, I'll definitely. Me and my wife. My wife was a really good athlete too. She went to Dinuba and played softball there, and had the option of playing college. But she kind of was looking further into the future, saying there's not really a professional league for softball, so she decided just to kind of focus on her schooling instead of playing.
Was she a pitcher or what?
Yeah, she pitched and she played first.
Did she play for the Tribes as well?
Yeah, she did. She was a big, tall, blonde. Yeah.
Shout out to Coach Richie.
Yeah.
I hope you watch this episode. My daughter's with the Tribes.
Okay. Yeah.
So she knows the cheer. Tribes.
Yeah. So she was Tribes. So she played with like the Kristen Carrion and Kayla Carrion and Alyssa Navarro and all those girls. So,
okay. Yeah. So we're with the coach Marcos right now. Pruneda and Richie.
Yeah, Richie's been doing it for a while now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Yep. So I'll definitely, we've talked about it to where we'll kind of let them do whatever they want. Obviously, I'd love for them to play football and be a quarterback. But even I'm gonna be a little bit slower to letting them play tackle, I think, sooner than I played. I personally probably won't let them play tackle football till at least 6th or 7th grade. And even just from personal experience, like my offense coordinator at Oregon State, his kid played tackle football while I was at Oregon State. And he was probably 4th grade at the time. And he had 3 or 4 concussions and actually had to stop playing. And again, as the older you get, I don't think you're missing out on any development as far as flag football. I'm sure kids are getting poked at and made fun of. Oh, you play flag football, you're not tough or whatever the case. But I mean, just the older you get, I think the football gets safer. Obviously, guys get bigger, faster, stronger, but guys know how to tackle. Guys know how to keep their head up, and it's just more safe in general. So, again, if they want to play football, obviously they probably have a little bit of a leg up. I'll be able to help them with things. And
You might know a few things.
I might know a few things in baseball and football and kind of all these sports, but I don't know. I've always taken the approach. I mean, whatever they want to do, I'll tell you they're going to be really good at it. I'll make sure of that as far as like, hey, if you're going to do it, we're going to really do it. So I know that's something that my parents just kind of willed into me. It's like, hey, don't do anything halfway. If you're going to do it, make the decision to do it and kind of go full throttle.
And now that you have your own family unit, what role does God play in all that?
Yeah, it's huge. I know. I mean, every night, gracious that my wife's a believer as well, to where that makes it easy to where, every night we got.
What's your wife's name?
Chelsea.
Chelsea. Shout out to Chelsea. Thanks for running things.
Yeah.
Believers.
Yeah. She was the real recruit
Jesus.
that got me to Fresno State too. She was a big recruit in that.
There you go.
But getting just little stuff. Being able to pray with the kids at night, and my son's barely talking. He's talking a lot now, Malachi, but just teaching them how to put their hands together, close their eyes, and just say "Dear God," and kind of learning stuff. So it's like little stuff like that. So it's really cool to see that happening. And it's sure as they get older, it'll be even more when they're actually really able to understand things.
Yeah, no, I think it's so important, to build that foundation at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't become a believer till what was I, Mike, in my 30s, 20s? Yeah, he actually pulled me in. I blame him.
That's awesome. Yeah.
No, I'm grateful to him and our other friend. But I now look back and go, how lost I was as a kid if I would have had kind of that foundation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of decisions I wouldn't have made. But it's all part of the journey, and the fact that your family, you guys get to start, your kids start from day one knowing who God is and that He plays a role in your life.
Yeah.
And I think, this is all parts of God's plans. Bringing you here right now is surreal because, like I said, I'm crying in the stands. I've never met you.
Yeah.
I'm crying in stands with my kids. Mac and I are talking about a podcast, 3 years ago? 3 years. We should do it, and here we are with McMaryion.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The man.
I appreciate
the myth.
That. Yeah. Thank you.
No, hey, but you know what? I want to thank you, Mark.
Yeah, 100%.
And we're going to close it out like we always do. If you guys want to check out Marcus, we're going to leave some of his links. Jim, if we can hook that up to reach out for Marcus. He knows a little bit about quarterback. If you guys have a young kid who's a prospect who may want to get some training, you can reach out to Marcus. Also, the mentor side, right? The mental side you're working on now. Do you have a name for your academy?
Yeah, so it's I'm working on it now. It's going to be Athlete Country Club, but right now just the quarterback stuff. They could just reach out to me personally on Instagram.
That's on Instagram,
and I'll be able to get to them. Yeah.
I think also, Marcus, let's not forget, your wife is now the big star with her TikTok page. So
what?
Yeah,
Chelsea, you got a TikTok?
Yeah,
I want to do a dance.
She's the real social media person right now. So I think she's got 170,000 on Instagram and about 250 on TikTok.
What?
So she's doing pretty well.
Chelsea, please come on the RobLive show.
Yeah, she's doing pretty well.
We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, the roles reversed in our relationship. I was the big star for a while. Now she's taken over.
Oh, that is awesome.
I'm happy to be Chelsea's husband now.
What's her content? What kind of content?
It's motherhood for the most part. Children products, motherhood, kind of stuff like that.
Does she do the dances?
No, she's not a big dancer. It's a lot of she kind of blew up off of children's baths, like making her kids special baths like once a week, and then now it's all people sending her products and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's fun.
Sponsorship. That is awesome. Anyway, thank you for being here.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're so grateful. We're going to end out this RobLive session, as we always do, with love, peace, and chicken grease. RobLive, and we out. Healy, you pick cameo.